Good afternoon, welcome to the channel. If you're new here, welcome. This is a question that I've been getting quite a bit as of these last months, and it wouldn't have been one that I would have really thought about talk about, but a day in the life of an Amish girl, what does that look like? And for me, it's normal. Like, I have 6 sisters, and it's just, I never really gave that much thought that it's very different. But as I left the Amish and am no longer living in the Amish community and living on the Amish lifestyle, and I even talked with my family, I realized how much it has changed. So I'm super glad that you gave your suggestions, and I'm more than willing to share it. So if you're new here, I'm Irma Mass, and I talk about faith, simple living, minimalist lifestyle. I have an Amish background, so I answer questions about the Amish. And so welcome. Hope you're enjoying this place, and feel free to stick around and subscribe if you like this kind of content. And if you have questions, feel free to comment below and ask your questions. Find me on Instagram. What does it look like? What is a day in the life of an Amish girl? So when I say a girl, that is something I was thinking about. Understanding the different cultural things has been a significant challenge for me, and I still don't understand many of the cultural things. I have my own apartment, and so I get to make my own lifestyle, but I realized if I would say live with a family that has no conservative background, it would be very different. And when I say a girl, it means an unmarried woman. I understand that girl can also mean like a young, non-mature lady, or in the Amish culture, we would have said a girl would be an unmarried woman. And the difference between, for guys, it was unmarried guys are automatically boys, married guys are automatically men, and that was the way that we distinguished the difference. Had nothing to do with maturity level. So I understand like both of the sides there. So I think I will use a few different examples. Number one was maybe when I went to school. And of course that changed during the summertime and all that, but say when I was a school-age girl, maybe 11 years old, I was in 6th grade, and so I got up in the morning. I have 10 siblings, but 3 of my siblings were going to school in the same from 1st to 8th grade. And so we took turns. One would pack the lunches for noon. We always took our lunch buckets with us to school. And then it was me and my sister and my brother, and then another sister. And when I would have been in 6th grade, my sister would have been in 1st grade, so she probably didn't do any work in the morning. My brother had some barn chores that he had to do, feeding the rabbits, maybe feeding the horses. And then me and my sister would take turns. Maybe for a week, I would do the dishes, she would pack lunches. And then the next week I would pack the lunches, she would do the dishes before we went to school in the morning. And then in the 6th grade, we had about maybe 1/3 of a mile walk to school. And then we went to school. I'm not going to go through all that. Maybe sometime I'll make a separate video of how school looks like. If you'd be interested in that, comment below. And then after school, one of us would do the dishes, one would help with mom with supper or whatever she asked us to do. And my brother would often fill the wood box. At that time they had wood furnaces or wood heat, and feed his rabbits and maybe do some barn chores. And then until supper or so, and then after supper was the dishes and whatever needed to be done. Work in the garden, mow the lawn. I don't think I mowed too much lawn at 6th grade. We had the very hard push mowers at that point. They have changed a lot since. Wow, that brings a lot of memories. 6th grade was very different from the lifestyle they live now even. And then I remember we often had time in the evening to play, with Andy Over or kick the ball or prisoner space. We had croquet. There were just outdoor games. If there was in the winter, we would go ride sled, or we had a lot of indoor games. My family loves games, and so even now in the evenings, it's not unusual for them to play a game. Or that was just something that we have always done. Card games, board games, whatever kind of games. And for the rest of the evening, and then there were showers and bedtime. So that was kind of a school-age girl. And then say when I was 15, I I was graduated from school. Typically, they graduate from school right around 14. I was 13 and then I turned 14 in September. And so at 15, we were milking between 100 and 200 goats with milkers. And my dad worked at least part-time or then full-time. And so but he worked not far from home. So he would go out, he would start the milking, wake me up, start the milking, and then I would go out and help him with the milking. And then my brother came out and helped me, and dad left to go to work. So I would get up around 5:45 to 6, and typically he would start milking around that time, help with the milking. Then I would clean up the milk house, wash the milk pails, the milkers, the wash house, the milk house things, clean the parlor. Usually it was just brushing it down. Every now and then they pressure washed it, and make that the goats all had their hay and water, and the little goats bottle fed. And then my brother, while I did the milk house things, my brother did the rest of the chores, which was like bottle feeding kids, feeding the rabbits, feeding the horses, and all that. I got to the house between 8 and 9. Then I would wash up. Often I would change clothes and eat breakfast. And then sometimes mom would have the laundry started. We had 2 laundry machines with this. It's electric. It's running off with a generator, but it's still like the old style wringer machines. Mom and I would do laundry, and then it was almost lunch till we were done. In a family of 13, there is a lot of laundry. We usually did laundry Monday, Wednesday, and Friday were the typical days. And so we had maybe anywhere from 8 to 15 loads. I remember sometimes up to 20 loads on a Monday. And then we would have lunch together. Usually it was just mom and I, and maybe 2 of my siblings that didn't go to school yet, like 2 that were small kids. And we would have leftovers or sandwiches or whatever for lunch. No microwave, just heating it up in the stove. Then we did dishes. And so usually I would have some time in the afternoon, like after lunch, and doing the dishes, where mom would take the little ones for naps, and I would have like 15 minutes to an hour to myself, or to nap if I needed a nap, or read a book. I loved reading, and I often read, or just to kind of do whatever I wanted to do, take a walk or whatever. And then the afternoon consisted of, usually by that time the laundry was almost dry. There was lawn to mow, weeding to do. I have never really liked planting flowers and things. I know that's kind of funny, but I would much rather clean flower beds and like pick the weeds, whatever. And so that always worked out very well because I could go pick the weeds, and most of my sisters loved planting better. Monday afternoons, I would clean, like dry clean the Sunday clothing. We didn't wash the jackets and the dress jackets, things that the guys wore, the hats, the bonnets, the shawls. We didn't wash, like we just dry cleaned that. And then, so usually Monday afternoons I would do that, clean and polish the shoes. And then around 3:30 to 4, we started with supper. Supper was our main meal, and mom usually tried to make that there was meat thawed out from the freezer. We were allowed to have freezers, and make something for supper. Sometimes I was allowed to plan it, or sometimes mom, and oftentimes that was like, Mom, what do we make for supper? I don't know. What about this and that? And we would discuss it and come up with something. Like mashed potatoes and hamburger patties and green beans was a favorite meal, or pizza casserole is something that I often make. And so one of us would make supper, and then around 5:30 we would eat. Sometimes it was a half an hour, and sometimes we'd be at the table for an hour just talking, and kind of our time to catch up. We had moved, so they had further to school. At about 4, my siblings came home from school. They had a good mile walk from when I was 15. We had moved, and they had a little over about a mile and a fourth walk to school. So they would come home around 4 and snack and talk and share about their day and whatever. So they were often in the kitchen while I was making supper. And then after supper and the dishes, whatever there was to do, sometimes the laundry didn't get put away until then. Typically we would bake in the evening, and sometimes mow the lawn. We didn't like to mow the lawn in the afternoon if it was really warm, especially in the summertime, just because it's hard on the grass, and if it's warm, it's warm. And so working outside was sometimes in the evening, playing games, reading. We usually had library books. They have a bookmobile that comes to their neighborhood, so getting books and then reading in the evening, showers, that kind of thing. Games, sometimes outdoor games, sometimes indoor games. That was kind of my day in the life as a 15-year-old, through a weekday. We didn't, there was no phones, or no cell phones, so there was no internet or social media or anything like that. So there was no connection with my friends outside of actually talking with them in person. We didn't text, or we didn't have any of other connections. So I had a lot of friends, but I didn't see them. I mean, if I saw them, we had either a birthday party or a sleepover, or I saw them at church, or I saw them in youth things, but we didn't have like a day-to-day contact. So that was kind of my day in the life as a 15-year-old. And I'll give you one more example. This was not me. I never had that because where my life went then. But another typical scenario would be my sister's example. So she gets up at 4:30 in the morning, leaves for work just before 5. A taxi driver picks her up. She leaves for work. She works all day, and in a wood shop right now, and like sanding and doing different things with wood products. And then she gets an 30-minute or it's an hour break for lunch. I'm not quite sure there. And then she gets home from work with a taxi at 4 o'clock. And sometimes she'll help make supper, or oftentimes by the time people get home from work and supper, there's a little bit of time where there's just a lot of talk and sitting around, sometimes snacking or whatever. If they have something youth related, they might get ready before supper and then eat supper before they go. Or cleaning. She might start with cleaning before supper, and then supper is at 5. After supper is the dishes, and then sometimes she'll help with the barn chores. Most of the time Dad does that now, and they don't milk the goats anymore. So she is, and then after supper is work. Either it's outside work or laundry or baking or whatever they have done. I think, and they have a lot of youth things going on. So she doesn't have, she works away from home, typically be gone all day, and just kind of have a little bit of time in the evening to work at home. So it's not that all girls are stuck at home helping their mom, or I shouldn't say stuck. I loved helping my mom. I got, through that, I had a good relationship with her. I learned to do all the sewing, the cooking, the baking, the canning, the freezing, the outdoor work. I learned all of those things, and I very much I love that I had the opportunity to do that. So that is kind of a day in the life of 3 different age groups. Or I'm hopeful that was a little bit of an insight. There's definitely not that they're all stuck at home, or they're teaching jobs. Many girls are teaching school during the winter. They have all kinds of jobs that the girls can do. So I hope that was insightful. Leave me comments if you have more questions or comments, and I will see you next time. Bye.